say, look, everyone's moved to this point. Let's use it for its point.
It sounds like a good time to take.
It is. Great time.
And go and remove rights.
Yeah.
And a new sense of neighborhood.
That's it.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to GP Tuesday. This is a weekly AI education here at the Hub. We have two wonderful speakers today. We have Jordan Leigh and we have Sam Hastings. Today we're going to be talking about a few different projects that we've built with AI. They've built some really incredible projects with artificial intelligence. So we're essentially going to show you a few different ways that you can apply these into your own technology stacks, how you can use AI in a practical way for your own technologies and into your own products or your own businesses. So these are going to be a few use cases that the community has developed themselves. So this is our open mic night where we bring together different developers, engineers, business people into one place and show what the community is building. So Jordan, he's a 3 times founder, the founding engineer over at Phantom, and he's also one of the finalists for the hackathon for the Miami AI Hub. So we're really excited to show a little bit about what he was building. And he was building Blend in AI, which is, well, I'll just let you take it away from here.
All right, thank you for the awesome intro, Grant. All right, hi everyone, my name is Jordan. I'm gonna show you a demo of something that I'm working on. It's called blendin.ai, tagline AI-powered website translation in seconds. So I'll give a very quick overview of why I think this is an interesting thing to build, and then a demo of very much in progress code of how I'm thinking about it. So what is the problem here? It's basically this. Most of the world doesn't speak English. Most web content is hard-coded in English. There you go. I don't know the exact number. I think it's something like 80% of people don't actually speak English or don't speak it well as a native language. Almost every web app or mobile app you see will have hard-coded English language text into it. This is a huge problem because it completely stifles your growth. This is obviously a well-understood problem. Once projects start getting big and people want to scale and they want to reach a larger audience, they'll have to undergo an internationalization process where they start internationalizing their application. And it's very, very, very well proven in Silicon Valley that translations equal growth. You will reach more users if you localize text and you localize content. But internationalization, which people often abbreviate as I-18N because there's 18 letters between the I and the N in internationalization, is very hard for a variety of different reasons. The big one is that it's a very asynchronous process, meaning humans are in the loop. You need to work with human translators, and they work on their own time and their own schedule with their own workflows. And that is very much not the way software is built. Software is built very, like synchronously with CI processes that just get executed and either like succeed or fail, like deployment pipelines that are just like going. And if you just have these like huge stop gates that involve human translation and back and forth, it creates like a lot of complexity. It's also, it like has this real back and forth kind of energy to it. Like you might have a translator that says, hey, I don't know the context for this string that you need translated. Like I just see the word CLOSE that's been parsed from your app somewhere and uploaded to me. And I don't know if you mean like close the window or you mean like I'm close to you. And like in English, that might be the same word. In Russian, they're two completely different words, or you might not know, is this a command? Are you like, it's just this really, really back and forth thing. And like, you don't have the ability to mitigate that without physical conversations with humans. It's also hard because like code bases and text and web content is a very moving target. You're constantly changing it. So if you have websites that are translating different languages and you're constantly changing stuff and testing stuff, or have user-generated content, it's not clear necessarily how that's going to integrate into your pipeline. So the way people approach this is generally, with a lot of kind of synergizing different fragmented products. You have JavaScript libraries to actually figure out what language the user's browser is in and what you want to inject into it, and how you're going to inject it. You have different platforms that will manage the strings in your code base over their life cycle. You'll have translation companies that you have to contract with and interact with that will come translate text. You have to integrate it into CI pipelines to make sure that the newest translations for the right version are like ready for whatever you're deploying. And I think that this is a really good use case for where AI can solve like a very real problem at a very large scale, because AI is very good at language translation. For those that haven't played around with it, like even if you just want to test it out and like give it a paragraph and say like translate this into Spanish, it's very good at it. And it's not only that it's good at it, in my opinion, it's that there's like an actual workflow to improve the translation quality based on context in a very synchronous and fast like feedback loop. So we've had things like Google Translate that are like machine translation workflows and like APIs and stuff, but the problem is like you can't just like tell Google Translate to like make its translations better in some context. Like it doesn't work that way. But ChatGPT does work that way. I can say, hey, this is a command, like treat it like one, and it will change the translation that's output. So like just the fact that you can do that means that this is like now in the realm of solvable problems. It's like, hey, there is some way to give context to whatever language translations you're getting and get better translations. So like my thought with just why I wanted to work on this in the first place was like translations right now are slow and expensive, and AI gives a way to make it fast and cheap. So like surely there's like a product here that can exist and help solve this problem and potentially be a good business. So I kind of like set out as like, hey, I think it'd be a good idea to build kind of a suite of developer tools to capture this experience and build a good translation product for web content. Definitely not there yet, but at least I'm starting to hack around. So I can show you kind of a little bit of a demo of how I'm thinking about this. If anyone has any questions before we do that. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
You said that Google falls short of the fact that they can't contextualize the translation.
Yeah, so what I mean is like, so say like in an application, I have a modal and I have a big X on the top right corner and a text that says close. And if I click it, I close the button. Now I can use Google Translate's API and upload the text and say, translate this. But it doesn't know if I mean close, like close the modal, or close, like I'm close to something. Like it doesn't have that context awareness. It's just like give me a string and I'll give you an output. But with ChatGPT, I can give it that little like system prompt that says, hey, by the way, treat this as a command because it's in the top right corner of a modal, and then the word, and then say translate it to every language, and it'll actually give me the command in every single language. The what?
So now it's easier for the end user in a foreign language to actually understand.
Yeah, I'm saying that it's easier for somebody that's using a translation API, if they're using an LLM, to specify with precision what they mean and get accurate translations out the other side. Whereas now it's not so clear how to do that with like just Google Translate's API, for example. Like it might just not have the right context, or you might be like, hey, this word is an entity name. Like this is a named entity. Like do not translate this word. But like there's no way to give it that context, just like in text when you tell it to translate like a huge block of text. So like you have to do a lot of data engineering around it. Whereas, like LLMs now are just like, you just tell it the thing that, hey, this is a named entity, don't translate it. And it's like, okay, I won't translate it. And don't translate things that look like phone numbers. Okay, I won't. Don't translate addresses. Okay, and I'll figure out what an address is and not translate it. So it's like, there's just a lot of ways to attack like the complexity of doing language translation to get better translations without a lot of data engineering that needs to be done, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe this is a question for further into the presentation, but I also work with language translation with apps. Like I created like a flashcard, basically like a language learning application. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on, detecting the language and then, then base up, then have certain rules for the languages, or just having it, go out?
Yeah. So I mean, my kind of thought and like how I'm approaching this is, I don't really want to have rules engines. I feel like I used to go to like natural language processing meetups like a decade ago, and people were very into the idea of like trying to generate rules engines for languages. Like a verb means this, so parse exactly this many tokens, call it a verb, translate it this way, and try to like encode their entire knowledge of like language into like smart rules and stuff like that. And like LLMs have kind of blown that away and been like, we don't care about your rules. We're just made a brain that's really good, and we're just throwing more computing power at it. And it's just going to get really, really good at figuring out exactly what needs to get done. I think the thing that I'm trying to, like, the way I'm thinking about it is like, I know that AI is going to be very good at language translation. There might be ways to correct it by giving it specific context. So if like I find that, hey, you know what, AI sucks at translating verbs in Filipino. It just doesn't get them right. Like I would much rather just like take a textbook that's like how to conjugate verbs in Filipino, take that text, put it in the context window when it translates Filipino, and just have it figure it out, than try to like make a rules engine for like how to do this kind of stuff. And like I feel like that's kind of, yeah, just like in general, I kind of tend towards like data engineering the context window is really good, because then you scale with the models. Like as the model gets better, your output's going to get better. But like if you're making rules, like it just seems like a black hole where you can spend a lot of time. Yeah. All right. Anyway, we can look a little bit at kind of what this looks like. So let's see. I have this app that is not really an app. It's just something that is lying on my computer. That is just some website that I made for a friend. This is part of it in like some other build, but whatever. It's just some static website. And notice that it's not translated at all. It's just a code base that's here. It's a very simple like home screen, just HTML, text like this. So the thing that I've been building is the site called Blendin. It's just like a suite of developer tools that are going to try to make this translation experience like very, very seamless. So very quickly, what I'm thinking of is there's a site, you can create an account on it, you can create a project. So I'm going to create this project called Amaranth, make it public, and then say what languages I want to translate into. You can see that we can change this in a second, but like let's just say like Hindi, French, and Arabic. So I've created a project. It gives me like this config file that has the project ID and some information about it. I think I actually changed the format of this config file, but it looks like this. I just need the project ID. So you have like some config file. This is a .blendin.json that I'm just adding to my app that has like a project ID on the website and like an API token so that I can upload it. And then I just say what target locales that I want to translate into. So Hindi, French, and Arabic, these are ISO codes. Yeah, and that's it. So like all I did is just add this JSON file to my app. That's all that I've done so far. And I'm saying what source file paths I want to look at. So I'm just saying all the JSX files here are like things that I want to look for strings in and potentially translate them. Okay, so let's go to this home screen and let's take these things: prize pool, winning papers, influencing papers, and I'm just going to add like an HTML tag to it, or a class that says Blendin translate. Okay, so that's all I've done so far is I've just added a couple classes. This is like somewhat like Tailwind CSS, if you've seen that. And now, let's see. If I go, where is that site actually? It's in desktop, okay. Okay, so this was the site I was in. So I have a CLI tool. So I can just write blendin translate and give it the path to that JSON file, which was in source.blendin.json. And let's see if this works. Does not look like it did. Let's see. Saying that something. Oh, I need to source my environment variables, I think. Okay, so I just ran this CLI command, blendin translate. And if I go back to my UI, we should see that instantly it uploaded those things that I had the class for, and it generated translations for them in each of the languages that I specified. And say I wanted it in Russian, let's say. It's as simple as, you know, adding a target locale to my config file. I can say, okay, translate anything that you find in that. I should see it uploaded here and instantly done. So what's happening just real quick in the background there is that CLI is just parsing all the source paths that are in my app, looking for that blend in translate like directive on the class, pulling out all the strings, uploading it to a server, it's kicking off some data pipeline that has on Lambda interacting with ChatGPT's API and saying, hey, here's some strings to translate into these languages, get the translation, save it to a database. And then, so one thing that's cool now, so I have this kind of like in the cloud, but I can pull it down locally. So like in my config file, I have translations target path is just like a /locales folder here. So if I do blend in pull, you could see that this file now gets pulled down with each locale that I had specified and all the translations for it. So I have that like locally in my app. We can, just say on the about screen, I want to make hello from about screen, blend in translate, rerun the translation. We should be able to go to the little cloud, server and see, like hello from about screen has been translated to Hindi. We can now pull that back down, and we can see that like locally in our app, so that we have this like translations file. Like, should be noted, the way that I'm actually doing the translations right now is probably the most simplistic possible prompt. It's basically just like translate it from this language to this language. This is going to need to evolve a lot more, but the point is, you can do it. And then you could see how, like, I don't have this implemented in just the pure JavaScript yet, but you could see how you could then, based on knowing what language the user's browser's in, you could then inject the relative translation from this translations file into the HTML. Like if we look at the actual React library that I'm using, so this is how I'm doing it for real. I have a lot of things that look like this, where you have like a React hook. So that React hook can read the translations file. It can see what language the browser's in. Like when you change it like this, it can store that in a React context. And then it can inject the translation from that static translations file. So that's like one flow. I'm also, like with these React hooks, like if you want to do things where you can wrap text in React hooks, you can aggregate all the strings that way without needing a class. I'm also, something that's interesting here is that these, the text that I'm putting when I'm trying this with React hooks, I'm trying to find an example of this. Actually here. Let's see. Oh man, not you. Oh, okay, wait, hold on. Yeah, this is that example I was saying from like modals, I think. So like here's an example of a text object where I have an action button that says create project, and then I'm just passing in also this second parameter that says context, meaning this is a command. So like if you're using the React library for doing this, you can just give it the text that you want translated, but also pass in additional context. And you could also tag it with other things like max length. So if you have a UI that like can only support up to 20 characters, but like when you translate it to Russian, it's going to be 40 characters. You could say the max length on this is 20 characters. And when ChatGPT does the translations, it'll make sure to translate or abbreviate based on that character length. So a lot of this kind of stuff of like setting context and setting max length is stuff that would take a lot of back and forth with human translators to like get right, that you can just like code directly into your code, have it all aggregated and automated when you get the translations done. Yeah, and then those strings that are being pulled into the static translation file could just be served over the air also, or any part of it could be served over the air. So if I'm just in Hindi, I could dynamically load the Hindi translations on the spot if it gets really, really big or is like aggregating across multiple files and things like that. So yeah, this is the TLDR like I'm just trying to make this process super simple because it gets a lot more complicated, but just I think nailing the, hey, I just like added a couple classes, ran a script, and now I have my app localized flow. If I can get that right, you could probably get a lot of people to use it. So yeah.
imagine a different polymorphism. So right and right. So R-I-G-H-T. So turning right and being correct. What would I'm trying to think of what context you put there for, because it wouldn't be command. I mean, what would you put for that? And the reason why I'm asking it is a more general question around context, because that's brilliant. This is brilliant, but is that like, is that catered to like a wide enough?
Yeah, so this is gonna, if you guys are good at AI, this is gonna be very simple, but like this is the prompt that I'm using. And like the little thing that I have here is just like the format will be word, phrase, colon, context. And it's just like the context can be any arbitrary text. So it's like I'm just thinking of the context as just like text that you just inject in. So you could literally even spell it out. Like this word means correct, as in the answer is correct, not like the direction. You could put that as the context, and when it translates it, it's like that's just in the prompt that it's using to translate the text. So I do think like there's probably a lot of optimizations if you do this at scale of like, hey, there's some context words that we just want to get everyone into those flows because they mean certain things. But I think just the idea that you could write literally whatever you want and get the translation whatever you want is like good for now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think it's really cool. You can add context. Language context is everything. I was wondering what your thoughts are, and I'm just kind of thinking out loud, on additional forms of context, like maybe screenshots of the website.
Yeah.
Passing that to ChatGPT, for example, for more context, or also even collecting data from previous divs or different tags, and then having it have more context in that way. Of course, higher price.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea. I mean, so I've done somewhat decent large-scale translation projects before, and a lot of it is translators asking you to upload screenshots of whatever. They're like, hey, can you give us the screen that this word is in? Because they just want to see the whole context. So I think somehow, like, I don't know how good the like ChatGPT 4.0, like you give it an image and that like it will be able to parse the image and actually understand the content. Like I haven't really experimented with that, but I do think because humans do that and like it's valuable for their process, there's probably some merit in being able to do something like that. I also think realistically, you could give it the entire HTML page as context and it could probably figure out what an action button is and what's a command without you having to specify it. And I do think like if you actually like if I mean, I do want to make this a real SaaS product, but like if you do make it a real SaaS product, there probably needs to be some like zero onboarding where it's like just run this and we'll index your whole code base, where maybe it would be really helpful to just automatically infer things without them having to specify it like everywhere. So I do think that that's a valuable thing to actually figure out how to do, but I haven't spent any time on it. Yeah.
Two things. One, does it actually listen when you tell it, hey, only do 20 characters?
Yes.
Like it's, you say 20 characters, it holds to that 20 characters with ChatGPT?
Yes.
Really? Okay. And are you thinking you can just give it?
Well, I imagine it might be tokens, but yes, it will follow.
Are you thinking you can give it the website and just say, build this web page in this new language and it will do it?
No, I'm thinking of it more as it's still translating strings. It's like, at the end of the day, you're translating strings. But you should be able, from a developer's perspective, to just be like, translate my site. But it's not going to like translate your web page. It's still going to isolate individual strings and do it that way. Because I think just like trying to translate the entire thing at once, it's hard because it's like, I think like websites work in like they're living products. So like if you're going and changing a certain text prompt, you don't necessarily want to retranslate like the entire site. You just want to retranslate the one string that changed or something like that. So like the way that works now is every string, and it's not just a string, it's every, I kind of call this like a text object, that thing that we were looking at before that had like this kind of stuff. So it's like it has the text and it has the command and the max length. Like this is like the text object, and each text object has a hash associated with it, which is like just the SHA hash of like this object. And that SHA hash is essentially caching that string. So whenever that changes, it's like if the hash changes, it needs to retranslate it. But it'll always have the legacy hashes of everything that's translated in the past. So it should be smart where it's like, if I only changed one word, it can just retranslate that. It doesn't have to like retranslate the entire site. Yeah.
How long do you think it'll take you to precise?
I don't know. I think it's going to be one of those things where the first 90% you could do in a day, and like the last 10% would take you a year. You know, like it's just one of those things that's going to have a million edge case. Like 90% of it will just be done instantly and be pretty good, and then there's just going to be so many edge cases that you just need to drill down on and drill down on and drill down on and drill down on. It's just going to be long and tedious and covering all those edge cases, but eventually you're going to get something that's pretty good. And the dirty secret of this stuff is like, even paying human translators, like your translations still are not 100%. And like when you do this in production, you normally have multiple layers. So it's like, you'll pay someone to translate it, and then you'll pay someone to quality assurance it and QA it. So for me, it's like, you could just easily remove that first layer and just have AIs translate the initial pass and still pay for human QA, and you're still net ahead. Yeah.
So saying that you always look at 90% of this sort of like incredible percent, where do you feel you could put a certification on your product so that you can actually comfortable with this?
Oh yeah, sure. So I think that the question was, say that it does work that way, where you get 90% of translations out of the box, and the last 10% is just filled with edge cases and complexities that take you a really, really long time to get correct, right? So I think real companies will not settle for 90% translations. Like Apple's not going to release a new version of their iPhone with like 10% of their localizations wrong. But I think that there's two different buckets here. Bucket one is people that are just not doing any localization at all because they just like don't have the bandwidth for it. It's like someone has an indie site, it's doing a couple $1,000 MRR. It's like they're not going to pay to install like an internationalization pipeline, but they might have analytics that are like 20% of my users are from India, and I really just want this to be live translated into Hindi because I'm just going to reach more people, and like they just want that one-click thing, and like if it's 90% good, it's better than not having it, right? So I think there will be a market for that, and then I also think that people that do care about it would still be interested because you can always upsell human QA. Like I've worked with translation companies. You can contract with translation companies and just be like, hey, I'm going to pay you to QA all this stuff. But like, I'm still going to get an instant first pass. Like your experience using this product is you get an instant first pass of translations. You can see your site in Japanese and Russian and whatever. And if like the QA is asynchronous, fine. But like, that's still better than what's currently the process where you have zero synchronous. You can't see it in Japanese immediately, you know, like, so I do think that there's, even if the last 10% is excruciatingly hard, which I imagine it would be, it still seems like it's a workable situation. Yeah. All right, cool.
I have a question about number of objectives in the sentence. So in different languages, it will be different words, but then objectives may be different signs. For example, in Japanese, Russian, so how do you solve this?
Yeah, so the question is, even if you can consolidate the character length or standardize that, different characters in different languages can take up different sizes. It's very true. I don't think use monospaced fonts as a catch-all is a general answer to that. So I do think it's true. I have encountered this problem where people's Figma designs blow up when you add translations to it. And I think that's actually one of the really good use cases of having instantaneous AI translations like this is like designers that are mocking something up in Figma. It's really nice to just be able to say, hey, just show me what this would look like in Russian. And if you realize in the font that you have, like if you're not using a monospace font, if you're like, hey, the Russian characters just start blowing this up, we might actually need to scale down the max length of like the translation characters because like it's going to bleed over or something. So it's like, you're not even going to get that feedback right now because it's like, you can't, I mean, Figma might actually have some sort of translation plugins where you can do stuff like this, but yeah, I feel like you can't solve that problem unless you're using monospace fonts, but you can solve it with instantaneous feedback in the design tools where people are like actually trying to like figure this stuff out. So it's another use case of where even if the translation is not perfect, just seeing how it looks in like Russian or Japanese might give you some clue about, hey, we might break in Russian because it's just going to expand over our design or something. Okay, I think that is everything. Thank you guys. I hope to have the site live in like a week. That's my goal, but I always say that, so we'll see.
Yeah, great. Yeah, give it up for Jordan. That was a great presentation, Jordan. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was really amazing. Check out Blended. Check out Jordan Leigh on LinkedIn. I'll be posting the presentation slides after this. So really great presentation. Really looking forward to also trying to use that ourselves for GP Tuesday. That'd be great. Next up, we have Sam Hastings. There's also a really great application called Spotify and showing us how to utilize it. Well, I don't want to go into too much. He's been one of our community members for quite some time, great developer, iOS engineer, and founder and developer of applications. There's also iOS engineer for other companies. I'm going to go ahead and read your title so that they can hear you loud and clear. So go ahead and just put this on your collar.
Yeah, I'm a collar. All right. Has this got a USB-C?
Does anyone have a splitter by chance? I did not bring it with me today. HDMI splitter that converts it into USB-C. I usually have mine with me here at the hub, but
okay.
let me go ahead and find one real quick.
I mean, yeah, because otherwise I can't.
Still have the HDMI USB-C. Let me go take care of that.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was amateur. Okay, amazing.
You're welcome.
That's on this side here.
Awesome. Great. So we'll go ahead and load this up, and we'll be good to go from there.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Take it away.
All right. Well,
Thank you, Sam.
I hope you can tell from the logo that the ambitions of this project are less lofty than translating 80% of the, or translating for 80% of the world's population. So this is a presentation on an app I published last year on the App Store called Squattify. And before I'll demo it straight away, but before I demo it, just to say my background, I was oversold slightly. My background is I was a data scientist for 5 years, and then I took a sabbatical to move to Miami and do jello shots on South Beach. And during that sabbatical, I built some applications, and I fell in love with iOS development. So one of the prerequisites for getting a job without experience as an iOS developer is to publish an app. So I published an app, and it's quite cool. So I'm just going to demo it. So let me mirror my phone. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. So, okay, so the idea is when I do squats in the gym, I do like 10 sets of 10, and I lose count. I have to I time my rest, so I have to pick my phone up and start the timer and stop it, etc. So the first very simple problem this app is solving is counting your reps, starting your rest timer, stopping your rest timer. So let's say I'm going to, for this demo, I'm going to do 3 reps, say 2 sets, and I'll do 3 seconds of rest just for just to move it along. So let me put it here. Right, is that a fantastic video of me doing squats? And if hopefully the audio's on, so you can.
1, 2.
And then it will start the rest timer automatically. Stop the rest timer. Yeah, I'll do 3 more. I was already sweating when I came here because I cycled, so this should be. All right, so and then it automatically puts this on your history. Now, additionally, and what I haven't published, because you can't publish stuff which is beta, you say in America, on the App Store, there is real-time form correction, and I'll show you the actual, because I built a web app first that has that. Let me just. Here we go. Why is the font so tiny? Okay, so this is the original thing. So, okay. And yeah, I'm not a web developer, so forgive my amateurish web app. Okay, so let's look at the real-time feedback. So additionally, the app is monitoring 4 biomechanical metrics. These are things that are like, well, squat depth, so how deep you're squatting, but also, it looks so goofy, it's me. Knee valgus is your knees caving angle. Knees over toes is, the angle your knees goes over your toes, and then your weight distribution. So you can set thresholds and get real-time audio feedback on if you're making those mistakes. So let's say, for example, I'll turn on, and I've got this online, but I've switched off all of these because they're unstable, and I'll explain why in a second. But this is why I'm running it locally, because, oh, why is my camera not? That's weird. Hang on a sec. If that doesn't work, I can show you the one that's actually online, but that's strange. Okay, let me go to the real one. Body tracker. Okay. Oh, maybe that's the issue. It's weird. Okay, here we go. All right, so this doesn't have all the okay. So this, like I said, I've switched off all the other ones on this because they're unstable. So this is the one that's actually live online. But I'll show you just squat depth. So if I turn that threshold on, when I start squatting, it can.
9.
Oh, sorry.
8,
The audio is
7,
fairly annoying.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start squatting.
Okay, so it wants me to go at least 15 degrees with like femur angle to the horizontal. So if I do a squat that isn't quite deep enough, it will count the squat. Oh, it should count the squat if I go deep enough.
1.
Okay, but I didn't say there was no audio trigger there. But if I go deep enough,
Depth reached.
right? Okay,
2.
that's how it works for all of those metrics. So the knee valgus, the knees over toes angle, and the weight distribution. But for some reason, the camera's not working. But you get the idea.
Ensure your body is visible.
It's so annoying. All right, there's no user testing done with this, by the way. So, yeah. Okay, so the presentation is basically just to explain some of the technical background. I've got a little Canva. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Very professional. So yeah. So yeah. As I said, I built this app as a calling card, like to get like interviews and and iOS developer jobs. So a lot of the technical challenges around iOS development. But given the audience here, I'm just going to talk about the AI behind it. But this is the tech stack: Swift, which is the language for. Are there any iOS developers or any mobile developers? No. Oh, okay, right. So you know.
Not full time.
No, but okay, right. So Swift is the language that that native iOS apps are made in nowadays. UIKit is one of the UI frameworks. Realm is for persistent storage, and MediaPipe is the model I'm going to talk about, which is it's a suite of models from Google. So the 7 steps to counting reps. Do some exercises. Your phone records a camera stream, sends it to MediaPipe, which I'm going to come to in a second. MediaPipe spits out some coordinate vectors, time series of coordinate vectors. Some feature engineering is done. Classification of poses is done. Rep counting is done. So I'll go through that quickly. The MediaPipe is a suite of computer vision models that Google has provided a public API for. It includes facial recognition, hand recognition, object detection. The one that I'm using is called Blaze Pose, and it identifies. Has anyone seen this before? Okay, so it identifies like 33 body parts. They call them body landmarks, and you can sort of. I don't know if you can. The resolution is good enough, but yeah, you get the idea. Left shoulder, right shoulder, etc. Okay. Once you so this is what the output looks like. Each frame from a camera stream is converted into this coordinate vector, or these coordinate vectors, so, 0 index frames. So frame 0, you can see is left shoulder has the X, Y, and Z coordinate components. And so the X is the horizontal axis, the Y is the vertical, and the Z is the depth. And that, actually the Z I'm going to come back to. That's the whole reason why I haven't published all of those. That's the reason why those metrics are unstable, because they're sensitive to the Z coordinate, and the Z coordinate is actually kind of tricky. Because what's amazing about this model is that they take a 2D image and they construct a 3D representation of the body. There's a 2D image, but they can still tell that if I move my hand like this, my hand is not moving in the X or the Y or the X coordinates. If I just move it backwards and forwards, it can tell, which is pretty cool. And it now uses LiDAR to do that, but it did it before, so it doesn't need LiDAR to do that. LiDAR is like a depth monitor in the phone, for anyone who doesn't know. Okay, so the objective of this repetition counting is, first you need to take the image, convert it into this coordinate vector, and then take these coordinate vectors and create some function or create some model that maps those to pose classes, the down position of a squat, the up position of a squat, etc. You could do that by getting millions of images of people in different positions, running them through MediaPipe, getting out these coordinate vectors with their labels, because you label the images so you have the labels for the coordinate vectors, and then running that through a neural network and training it, okay? And that would probably work, but that's incredibly inefficient because you have prior knowledge about the stuff that might be useful to classify these images. The raw coordinate vectors, I mean, angles are really important. A squat is defined by, I don't want to give it too much away, but that's a squat. A squat is basically 3 angles. So if you're giving, if you're giving, let's say for 1 angle, that's defined by three body parts. You're making the neural network do a lot of work if you're not just giving it the angle in the first place. So this is the feature engineering that you can do. Google has a Colab notebook where they sort of give you a demo of how you might classify poses. They've picked really weird features. They've engineered really weird features. They've engineered all these distances between, which is these diagrams that I drew, distances between like your left hand and your left shoulder, which has no relevance to any of the, well, maybe a push-up. But anyway, angles are important, not distance. But this is what they've done. So I thought I'd show you their approach to the feature engineering. So you've got your engineered features, and then you want to classify. You want to take your feature vector and classify that feature vector as a pose. And there's 2 models that I played with. The probabilistic model, or probabilistic models. So the idea there is that you give a feature vector as an input to this model, and it provides a probability distribution over the possible classes. Google has used a KNN model, which I'll come to in a second, and I'm assuming some people know what KNN is. Okay, anyway, I'll explain it. And then there's the deterministic model, which is like you give a feature vector, and it just tells you that's what it is. Okay, that's like a rules-based model, and that's what I ended up using. Probabilistic model, KNN. I'm not going to go into too much detail for KNN, but just to roughly explain the intuition behind it. You have some labeled data points. So here, and it's in some space, some multi-dimensional space. Here, there's a two-dimensional space, and you've got green and red dots. They're labeled green or red. And the idea is you want to label this one in the middle is your new observation, and you want to label it. And it's k nearest neighbors. K is, you specify this parameter. It's basically arbitrary. There are some techniques to it, but you just specify some parameter k, and then you pick the nearest k neighbors, and you take a frequency of the classes of those nearest neighbors, and then the modal class, the most frequent class, that's the one you say, well, actually, you say the probability distribution. So here it would be 60% probability of being green, 42% probability of being red. So we're going to say it's green, right? That's one approach. That's what Google uses in their Collab notebook. You can do it that way here. So you take the way you would use that approach here is you have a big data set of these pre-labeled images, not millions, but hundreds per pose. Run them through your media pipe model, run them through your feature engineering, and then you have this labeled data set of these feature vectors. And when a new feature vector comes in, you just say, okay, what are the 5 nearest? What are their classes? Whatever the modal class is, that's what this pose is, okay? But it's really a rubbish way of doing it, in my opinion. Not just my opinion, because first of all, the performance is not very good. Second of all, you still have to label hundreds of images per pose. Third, you have very little control over, let's say, for example, just on the app, I wanted to change my definition of a squat. I want to impose a stricter standard. I want to say it actually needs to be parallel. My femurs need to be parallel to the ground. There's ways of doing that here, but it's really inefficient. You have less control over the class boundaries, is a technical way of describing what I just said. So then the other approach that I ended up using in my the stuff that I published is just deterministic. And it's just really simple. You work, so there's like definitions of what exercises are on these like weird, I read a bunch of weird papers. There's weird papers out there that tell you what the standard for exercise is. Anyway, here's an example, right? So you go to those weird papers and then you pull out the stuff, and then those are the features you need to engineer. So that's what you do. And there's some features that, yeah, that's basically it. The things to the things to consider are phone orientation, particularly the pitch. That's this angle that a phone is at, and for your screen, but for your phone, because it's a phone app, basically, has a big impact on the classifications because it changes what the phone thinks is horizontal. So there's ways of fixing that. Your phone has a magnetometer, I think it's called, and a gyroscope in it, so it can tell you what the pitch of the phone is. So you can correct that. It's not trivial, but you have to do that. It's not too hard. If you're using distances as features in that KNN model, you need to normalize those distances for people that are further and closer in that big data set you're using to do your KNN classification. Jittering. So let's say I'm standing still at the class boundary between the up position and the down position for a squat. I'm right in the middle, and I'm not moving, but those media pipe models are stochastic and they can jitter. So I could be doing thousands of reps in split second, right? Which, well, not thousands, but whatever my frame rate is, 60 in a second, right? So that's like fairly simple solution to that is just to create like a different threshold for entering and exiting a pose. So it gives you some sort of buffer, so you don't have that jittering problem. And then body rotation, and this is the crucial thing about why I haven't published my form correction things. It's because they are very sensitive to body rotation. If you imagine it was a 2D model, just X and Y, and I was doing a squat with my femur in the parallel to the camera's line of sight. Well, that just looks like, imagine my femur is just defined by my knee and my left hip. As I do a squat, this is happening. It's just going from 180 like up to 180 down, flicking. The line's getting smaller, flick, getting smaller, flick. But if it was perpendicular, then it would smoothly go from 180 down to, well, if I was that flexible, minus 180, right? So the point, all that is to say that when you add in this third dimension, it means that yes, I can be basically any when I did my squats, I didn't show you, but I can do, it works for any orientation. But those calculations that depend upon they're quite sensitive to errors in that Z component, and that Z component isn't very good, at least on the models that I was using a year ago. I think they may have gotten better. Anyway, that's it. So that's the
Any questions?
Did it get you any work?
Did what?
Well, you put this together.
I didn't get a job.
You did get a job?
I didn't get a job. I got an interview tomorrow.
Oh, good luck.
I built more apps since then, but still no jobs. No one's using it. That's the question. I built it and I published it and I moved on, to be honest. I wasn't really like trying to, I got accepted onto some incubator thing, but I don't really know if it's a business. I don't know. I'm not invested in it.
More of an exploration.
Yeah.
Using computer vision.
Yeah.
Do something really cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really great what you put together. I thought that was really fascinating.
Cheers.
I learned a lot myself. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Is that? Yeah.
So is there a way to collect post data from the end user as a numerical, like a numerical?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
So one of the things I was thinking was that actually storing, like, as features get added, what would be really useful is if you had this history of just like every workout they did, just defined by their feature vectors through time, because that's basically what a workout is if you're in terms of what your body, and then you could just add in new features that tell you the errors that as you bring them online, or how many calories you burn, or whatever it might be. But yes, you can.
yeah, that'd be amazing if you implemented that in your app at some point. Because like we were talking to Holy Cross hospitals, like physical therapy people, and like it seems like all these actually professional physical therapists, occupational therapists, they're actually using the wrong tools. Like they're using like physical fitness tools, like for what's one sport in the gyms? What's trainers called again?
Conditioning.
Physical trainers.
Physical therapist.
Yeah.
Personal trainer.
Yeah,
Personal
using
trainer.
personal trainer tools.
Oh.
Using for physical therapy.
Oh, right.
Because no app developer can afford to do clinical trials.
Right.
Just get to that next level.
Right.
They're doing almost like off-label book. So like, yeah, it'd be awesome if I noticed like some the only time I've ever been injured is when I've had a personal trainer.
Right.
I've never been injured by a physical trainer. Physical trainers actually,
Yeah.
they know the body. Yeah, so even like at University of Miami, like I had some friends who were like, they're just undergrads, but still, they had that mindset.
Yeah.
And when they were helping me in the gym, they really like modified even the squats, right?
Mm-hmm.
To know like how not to get injured.
Right.
While a personal trainer is just going for max or whatever. It's not a regular.
Well, I think you probably had a bad trainer. Some trainers are very good, but
No, I mean,
yeah.
it was good trainers, but they were trained. They were going to school to become occupational therapists. Right?
I would feel uncomfortable. I said that for C.
I would feel a bit uncomfortable saying at this stage that there's any AI that could replace a good personal trainer with form correction. Because at the end of the day, like for example, pelvic tilts. I mean, this is not going to tell you your pelvic tilt. I mean, maybe in a couple of years, but that's if, for example, a physical therapist, a trainer who's good can tell you you're progressing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, this has gone so much further just in the last few years compared to what people used to build just a few years ago.
But I think your point to your point on physical therapy, anything where form is really important. So I think yoga is one of the biggest use cases for this technology. But yeah, I've heard people talking about physical therapy as a huge use case.
Yeah, and the numerical aspect too. That'd be cool if it's like adaptive to the individual patient or client over time. To increase the angle of squat.
Right. Well, yeah. So the idea with those thresholds is that a PT can give you a program and say, okay, for you. But I read all these papers. Those 4 errors that I got there from a book that used to be the Bible with like before in the gym, becoming a supple leopard by a guy called Kelly Starrett.
Yeah, but those type of things, it's like, those one size fits all, right? That's how people get injured. Like,
Right.
for me, like when I did CrossFit, yeah, it was an amazing workout, but eventually just everyone gets injured, right? It's like, my bones are thinner, so I can't be doing the high stuff. So I think like your stuff would be great, maybe having it tailored to my body type over time as well. But great presentation.
Thank you. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I think it's a great business. It's great business potential. But like he's saying, there's personalized aspect of working out because there's people in different categories. Like there's people that are fatter. My question is, does Google have some sort of sensor that can measure the stretch on a muscle?
I have no idea. But to the general point about catering these thresholds to individuals, I totally agree. What I was going to say was, 10 years ago, there were much more strictly prescribed errors for different exercises like squats. Those are the 4 of 7 that are in this Bible book. Now, when you read biomechanical papers, they'll talk about so knee valgus. Okay, knee valgus is when your knees cave in when you're doing a squat. Okay, actually, it's more common amongst women. Back in the day, that was thought to be awful, but actually now, it's only weirdly enough if they've monitored the load through your patella tendon as you do that, and it's dangerous at the top of the squat, but not at the bottom. The point is that these things are much more fluid now. Knees over toes was thought to be a big error. Now there's a guy with 2 million followers on YouTube, on Instagram, called Knees Over Toes guy, because deliberately he's putting his knees over toes to develop his patella tendon. So the point that I also wanted to avoid any legal consequences of like saying this is correct and this isn't correct. So I've created like the ability to set your own thresholds. Yes.
How important do you think it actually is to the extent which these personal trainers have taken the tactics or the strategies or the exact form and metrics to like the extreme, to have an edge where the result is what you want and you want to see the proof in the pudding, right? So these people who have different body types, people that are fat won't be able to control the knees maybe, or but you do always want that effect to move forward towards the end goal. How important do you think it is to, like now with generative AI, it's very agile, right? Like it's coming up with ideas all the time. How much of that do you think relates to the human body, which is very, specific to certain races and certain, different.
Well, I wouldn't be racist, but I think that like I said, I think that it's important for a training program to be to adapt to whoever the person is. I think so I've catered to that here. As far as personal trainers being adaptable, it sounds like bad personal trainers. Yeah, they should be changing their programs to personalize. Yeah. Anyone else?
I was wondering if you started with the model being MediaPipe or the framework for computer vision, or if you iterated through that decision.
I used so the computer vision model that you used.
Yeah, you mentioned you use MediaPipe, right?
Yes, so I tried to, because so the depth thing annoyed me because I was already hoping this was going to be a form correction app, but because there was a few workarounds I thought, but I really wanted it to be a form correction app where it wasn't sensitive to the angle that you, because there are some out there that they make you stand in a particular line, which is a bit, anyway. So Apple came out last year with the, when they released Vision Pro, they also updated their Vision OS, and it was supposed to be this like great, and it is amazing. I'm not who am I to throw shade on their vision model, but the Z coordinate wasn't good enough.
So you tried the one that's was released with Vision OS?
I tried Vision OS and I tried MediaPipe. And to be fair, they're not giving. I think they have more accurate ones. The one that they've given a public API to.
The Vision OS one is like the AR kit stuff, or?
No, there's a model in Vision OS called Human Body Pose 3D Detector or something. I think they have a better one. I mean, they definitely have a better one because if you use the Vision Pro, it's insane. So the Z coordinate is
computer vision then on device?
Yeah, it is on device. That's a good question. And that means that the model is slightly smaller than it is. They have like different size models. This one's the on device one.
Yeah, I think that's one of the advantages of MediaPipe, right?
MediaPipe has the both of those.
Both of them, yeah.
Amazing. And yeah, so I know amazing presentation. Probably have some questions for Jordan. Is that right? So you can come up. Sorry, Jordan. You can come up here and answer some questions if you want.
Yeah, hey, Jordan. So I was listening to your talk on YouTube while I was driving here. Without the videos, I'll save. But yeah, it was really interesting presentation. But I was wondering if you could go into perhaps your background of how you got to basically your work at Phantom, and also what you think the future of AI inside the wallet ecosystem is. And just my background, like I also developed a wallet for EOS, things like that. So it's really very rare to meet a wallet developer. So I'm super excited that you did give this talk.
Gotcha. Yeah, I do think, so just for context, he's asking about the crossover between cryptocurrency wallets and AI potentially. Okay, the UX in crypto has always been kind of abysmal. I think a lot of people understand that. But the UX of something like ChatGPT is really good. Like my mom does not know how to send an Ethereum transaction. My mom knows how to use ChatGPT. So if you could have a ChatGPT like you send an Ethereum transaction and it would just do the thing that you want, there's probably something there. I think there's a lot of people playing around with this now. Like AI agent, like I think like with crypto, like one of the big problems is just how do you like do key management for any kind of like AI agent or anything like that. So I think a lot of that's getting figured out now. But I mean, my TLDR thought, I guess, is like I probably plays some sort of experience with it, but I don't have like further thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the trends that was going on is like wallets have at one point they were becoming very like much fat clients, where it's almost you could run many applications within the wallet, or even have like the whole voting for the entire chain on chain within the wallet as well. So what are your thoughts on, like for example, your app today, putting something like that inside the wallet, and when you token gate a website, your wallet itself would do the translating into Hindi, for example. Like just in general, like it seems to be like a really interesting concept of what you can do with your background with the new world of AI.
I don't want to, derail this too much with talking about crypto, but I do have a very strong opinion about that, so I'll answer that question, I guess, which is, and the question is just like, if you guys do crypto stuff, like crypto wallets have always been this like very thin kind of wrapper where anyone can interop with the blockchain through a wallet, but the wallet's been kind of like a dumb signing engine where it just custodies your keys and signs transactions, but a lot of the logic like lives in the dApp developers themselves. And then you've had this trend where people are trying to make wallets, more robust and like have more application code like in the wallets themselves. So I've always thought that the big missing piece of crypto wallets is the developer, kind of platformness of them. Like the only reason people use non-custodial crypto wallets is to interact with dApps, or else you could just use Coinbase and it would be the exact same experience. But wallets don't do a very good job of serving dApp developers. So there have been wallets that have tried to make custom development platforms inside the wallet, like what you're referring to, where you have these sort of like mini app development environments, where I'm an app developer, I have some framework to put native interop with whatever I'm building inside of a crypto wallet. I think that they've failed because they've kind of just been this like, what I call like the Android experience of like, it's just too custom, it's too ad hoc, like people put things, but they're really not well, thought out. and someone needs to make like kind of the Apple experience of it, which is like, we just have like a finite number of actions you can take. And this is the way, like, by the way, like other kind of in-app platforms work. Like Slack, for example, is a good example of like, this is a huge, chat app, but it has a development platform inside of it. You can build custom Slack apps and they're quite robust, but they're in just like a very well thought out framework. I can't just put whatever I want as a Slack app. I can only do a finite number of actions. So I think that like someone will get that correct of like, hey, this is a way to build native interop, like in a wallet, but it's just in a framework with a finite number of actions. You can't just throw whatever you want in there and just like hope it looks good. It just has to be a more thought out framework. And I think it just hasn't been done for a variety of reasons, but that was what I would say is that would be the right approach to that.
And last question, and you don't have to answer this, but we have a lot of, even within this GPT Tuesdays group, there's a lot of Solana developers, and they're all working on a project. So we used to have a Solana like retail shop, basically, space inside Winwood. So, but it seems like there's actually a lot more development going on now in Solana, even from back then. So what are your thoughts on the ecosystem, and what was your background? How did you get into this space, per se?
Crypto I've been following for a while. I was living in SF at the time. It was super interesting. The early days of crypto was a bunch of these like kind of, nerds that really had a vision for something that could be interesting and valuable. And there wasn't a lot of seriousness around it. Like people weren't investing in it to make money. It was just kind of like interesting economic experiments and cool technology projects. So like I was attracted to like that kind of energy. I think crypto got very derailed over the years into like ways to turn money into more money, and attracted a lot of us like more finance people and stuff like that. I think the programmable money is cool. People will always use it. They'll always have a use case. I think a lot of the apps that are being built are really cool, but they're just not very important. Like they're just like cool, fun experiments. They don't really amount to anything. I think it's gonna take something very real to like have crypto cross over that like chasm, and it's probably not gonna happen in the US because things are just like too good here. Like people don't take it seriously. Like it's a fun toy for us in the US, but like in other places it's a little bit more serious. And like I think that anything important that's gonna come out of crypto will probably come out of those ecosystems, where in the US we're just like making fun apps and like proof of concepts and like stuff like that. So I mean, I love my thoughts, but I don't want to derail the whole convo.
Thanks. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for answering those questions. Let me go ahead and just sync this up one more time. Mind if I see yours? Well, we'll go, Mike. Well, thank you so much, everyone. That was some great presentations by Jordan and Sam. We learned a lot today. We learned about language translation with AI. We learned about computer vision as well. Being able to detect and being able to essentially see how we might be able to use this ourselves in our own applications. Learn about what the community can build and what we can build ourselves. I hope that this has been a motivational and also educational sequence today. And this is why, when Sardor, Kadas, and myself, we started this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to help educate the people of Miami and the world every week by providing education here at GPT Tuesday. So again, thank you all so much for coming, and I'll go ahead and add our GPT Tuesday community chat group Telegram QR code on the screen after this, so that everyone can stay connected every day. And also, next few weeks we have some really great speakers. Next week we'll have the founder of Crew AI. So they're one of the largest multiple agent systems out there and frameworks. It's going to be really great. We also have Jen. Also, really looking forward to yours. Microsoft as well. So it's going to be a really great one. I cannot wait for everything that this community is going to build together and what we're building together. So with that, let's go ahead and just network and get to know one another. So thank you, everyone, and thank you. I guess one last housekeeping item is, if anyone has any pictures, wants to say anything on LinkedIn, Twitter, or anything, just give us a tag, and we would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Good job, man.
Thank you.
You too.
No.
Oh, yeah, one last thing, sorry, one last thing. We got a party going on July 12th. So as Society Wynwood, we're gonna throw a party. We're gonna be out for the rooftop party. We're gonna be having drinks. We will have a giant outside movie theater. We have a pool, jacuzzi, music, food, everything.
What's
So
the occasion?
come on by and meet. Oh yeah, ping pong. Can't go wrong with ping pong. We got a bunch of ping pong tables that are out there as well. So we want to make it so that we're not only an AI community, but we're an AI community that has fun together too. So thank you.
What should we bring to that party?
Anything you want. If you want to bring your own drinks, you can. But we'll have our own drinks served too. Probably swim trunks if you want to. A pool. Sorry. Towels.
You don't have to bring paddles because there's
Right. Yeah, ping pong paddles. Ping pong to be there. We'll come with paddles as well.
You live there too?
no. I just played.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll be there.
No.